weather-worn and pitted by bullets or gouged by bombs. There was a hole in the street which a woman casually walked around. Coming off the mountain the previous evening, we'd passed by worse damage near the train station. The face of a church reduced to rubble, the remains of a house slumped between crumbling apartments. Compared to the 3 Spanish restaurants I passed on my way to the Paradou, places with washed canopies and clean tablecloths, a few customers on their terraces, the Paradou was desolate. At La Dorada, the tables lined up under the plantain trees, each had a vase of bright red peonies in their center. How absurd, I thought, that people were still growing flowers, that flowers still willed themselves to bloom. Unlike La Dorada, the Paradou's courtyard was gloomy and sour-smelling. There were rivulets of water running down the cobblestones as if someone had sloshed a bucket at the source of the stench and then given up. There was no one outside, so I had my choice of the 10 tables enclosed within its thin railing, and chose the one closest to the beach so that the mineral lilt of the sea was before me. While I waited for the server, I watched a terrier pacing along the water. He was the kind of dog my sister had come to favor in her married life, and which, for no reason I could identify, I despised. Ritter was Mira's last dog, a chaser, bred for ratting, made into a pet, and killed in an accident beneath the wheel of a butcher's cart. I have always believed that if one wants to engage with an animal, one must do so on the animal's terms, not demean him through an excess of coddling. Mira was the opposite, even had a special cushion for the dog, which she placed under the pearwood table in the drawing-room. How her guests laughed at that the summer I stayed with Mira in Durbach. Those dogs who seem closest to wolves are the ones who interest me the most. What breed was Salome's pet? A wolfhound? Always slinking around the studio, and once baring her teeth at André when he blustered in drunkenly. I had been sitting on the chaise by the window and remember thinking, a bit too admiringly, that she'd tear André's throat right out of his neck if he weren't careful. The table I chose had croissant flakes on it and a spot of jam. When the waiter did not arrive with a cloth, I wiped the crumbs away with my hand and turned the table slightly to move the daub of jam to the side. It was nearing 1 o'clock, and more people were moving along the passage. A grape picker in his wide-brimmed hat, 2 men I took to be civil servants, a man in a railway worker's uniform who was likely heading home for his midday meal. None of them glanced at me, though I sensed they were all well aware of my presence. After a lull, a smartly dressed man in a black suit and Homburg came along. Another marvel, that the market economy still flowed, that the man's suit showed little sign of wear, even though production of goods was faltering and decent clothing had ceased to be affordable. This man gazed over at me. He had thick brows, a prominent nose, and a soft chin that made him appear sympathetic. He nodded the slightest bit as he passed my table, and then proceeded up a stony pathway toward the hem of the mountain, where 3 houses stood along a terraced ridge. The house closest to the passage, the one the man entered, was yellow, and though it was dilapidated like so many of the other houses in the village, it had a kind of regal facade, and what I imagined would be a magnificent view of the sea from its upper windows. To the side of the house, behind a low wall, a woman was pegging clothes onto a laundry line. In an attempt to quell my impatience over the absent waiter, I studied her efficiency and the graceful reach of her arms. As I watched her, the row of men's shirts and women's blouses grew. Just when I was thinking I should get up and leave, a trio of hens appeared a little ways up the mount, clucking and squawking loudly and darting around a gate. These 3 hens were soon joined by 2 more, who seemed to have escaped along a similar route. A flustered woman in a plain black dress followed soon after, reaching down to grab first one hen, then the other, with no success. She kept at them, though, rushing here and there, trying to pluck them up or bustle them back into the yard. Such clucking frustration on the hen's part.